Is it live now?
Yes.
Okay, you want to share the screen? Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vrajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vrajajana Ranjana Jaya Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Ajnanantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare. Thank you all for joining the call. Um, I can share the screen, right? Thank you all for being here. And I just wanted to take permission of all of you and blessings so I'll be able to speak something. So I will be able to understand about my mind. And in this process, if any of you are going to be benefited, I would feel very fortunate. So understanding the mind through our scriptures. Now we all, deal with our minds every single day. And so I'm going to take the course, through the lecture, that what's mind and what does all, Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what does Vyasadeva talk about, what he has written in Bhagavatam, and all the, wonderful devotees, what have they spoken about mind, and why are we even worried about mind so much? So to get started with, I'm just going to start off with what is mind. We all talk about, my mind is disturbed today, or sometimes if somebody is very funny, say, yeah, has your mind gone cuckoo? We talk about mind all the time in our day-to-day conversations and situations, but do we really know what mind is? So as per Bhagavad Gita, there is a three-level model. So there is a physical, mental, and spiritual model. Physical is the body that I can see, my hands, my head, my legs. I can see it actually grossly, right? So that's the physical part. The mind is actually the subtle part, which I cannot see, but that is still existing. And the soul is actually me that lives in the body. And we all know we are all eternally spirit souls that live in this body. And the mind, so if the soul is in the center, the outer covering, the first covering is the mind, and the next covering is the gross body. So the mind is very subtle. Now, as I start this, I just want to mention two people in my life who have helped me a lot. Whatever little I know about mind, it's mainly because of them. Well, I took some classes with His Grace, Satyadev Prabhu, who talked so much about mind and how yoga helps. And, I have to be very thankful to Prabhu. And also His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. His books, his analogies, and his lectures have helped me enormously. That I always carry one of his book called Minded with me. And it's an amazing book which talks about the connection between the mind and how we have to control it, from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now let's understand what body, mind, and soul with an analogy. So His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu does say this. He says, if you consider the body to be the hardware, so I connect it. If I consider the software, the second part, to be the mind, and the third, the user, to be the soul. So the user, we know, all of us use computers day in and day out. User is actually the main person in this whole situation who can actually control the software and the hardware. So if I want to walk, I can decide if I want to walk. I can go exercise myself and make sure my body is fit. And as far as my mind goes, let's think about our mind. The mind is a software. So software it is something that can get corrupted, and the user can actually fix it. So the mind, when it's not in the right condition, we as soul, we are very high and we are more powerful, because the body and the mind are material things. So it's like I use it to get work done. So mind is not a spirit, is not a spiritual stuff. It's just more a material thing. It's like a recorder. We're going to go into more details and we're going to understand it more in detail as such. Now, why do I need a mind? I need a mind because the soul that is entrapped in this body has to connect to the outside world. So that connection is actually the mind. So one nice analogy given by Prabhu is that, just think that I am talking to you all now. I need the Zoom call. I won't be able to talk to you if I'm here. If I don't have the Zoom call, right? So, or a phone, I cannot talk to somebody who's far away from me. But when I am actually in the temple after COVID, and if I'm giving a class, I don't need a Zoom call. I will be directly talking to you. So similarly, when a soul is entrapped in a body, it needs a mind like the Zoom call to connect with the outside world. But if a soul is free, it doesn't need all those extra gadgets to connect. So let's understand a little bit more. So as I just said, it's a 3-level model given in Bhagavad Gita, which actually talks about the gross body, the body I can see. And the subtle body is just not the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And so we're going to go more in detail about what they mean. And soul, like me, I'm a conscious person. I have consciousness in my body. I understand things. I am, because I'm actually the soul. The soul, the symptom of the soul is consciousness. Otherwise, we would not be conscious. When a person passes away from a body, the soul leaves the body, then in that case, I would actually lose my consciousness, right? So that's a very important part. Now, when I'm thinking about, okay, I understand mind is an intermediate between me and the outside world. Well, what does the mind do? What's its job? The three things that we all do all the time actually is coming from the mind: thinking, feeling, and willing. This is according to Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, second chapter, 16th verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the most important part, the job of the mind is to think, feel, and will. Of course, mind can think about material things. It can feel for the material things, and it may will to do material stuff. Absolutely. Because as I said, it's just a material thing. It can be trained, in whichever way. It's a recorder. And when the mind acts under spiritual realm, it can wonderfully help you go back to Godhead. Because mind can be manipulated to do good or bad. It's like the knife that we talk about. Prabhupada always gives in the purports. He says a knife can actually, if it's in the hand of a surgeon, he can actually take out difficulties, all kinds of diseases. But the same knife, if it's in the dacoit's hand, he can actually kill people, or make people, make other people fearful and take away the money. So the same thing can be used in different contexts. So we are looking at how what was the mind function? Thinking, feeling, and willing. We do that all the time, all the time. Now, why did I connect with the mind? Now, well, I'm a spirit soul, and why did I need to have this mind at all? Because all the living entities in the material world wanted to, lord it over the material nature. They didn't want to be with Krishna. They said, we declined to cooperate with you, Krishna. Well, then Krishna, because we had this desire that we want to enjoy without Krishna, then we enter into the material world. That's Mahatattva. As soon as a soul enters from the spiritual realm to the material realm, it has to first identify itself falsely. That's called false ego. Now, we talked about three things, right? Mind, intelligence, and false ego as subtle. So in false ego comes, what does false ego mean? The real ego is, I am the servant of Krishna. Ego is not bad. The real ego is very good, because I consider myself to be the servant of Krishna. A false ego is when I think I am this body and I am the most important person in the world, and everybody has to take care of me. I want to lord it over the whole thing. Then that is false ego. The real ego is to be servant of Krishna, but false ego is I want to lord it over the material nature. I am this body. Because I have this, once I get connected with the material world, from Mahatattva, this false identity gets connected. And then I will need an intelligence, mind, and senses, because I want to enjoy. If I don't have senses, I won't be able to enjoy. And if I don't have the mind, my desires will not be produced. So these are all very simple material. It's like I'm creating this robotic body, and the robotic body should have a mind, intelligence, false ego. Everything has to come together. Now, this covers the pure spiritual identity. It totally covers out the soul, who you are, where you're going. You're just enjoying for time immemorial, suffering, enjoying, like chewing the chewed over and over. Until and unless, of course, we are very fortunate that we got connected to Srila Prabhupada through his disciples, books. And so, yeah, we're trying to reveal our spiritual identity. Now, one important thing is, for time immemorial, all of us have been changing the gross body that we live in. Maybe in the past, I could have been in an animal body or maybe a tree, but now I have this human body. But my gross body has been changing. But remember, my subtle mind, intelligence, and false ego have been with me for time immemorial. I have never changed it. So all the time, when a person passes away, the soul is actually taken out through the subtle body, actually carries it to another body. So remember, this is very important for us, because the mind is what determines my next place I'm going to. If my mind at the time of death remembers, oh my gosh, I have this beautiful dog in my house. When I pass away, there's nobody going to take care of this dog, and he's going to be on streets. Well, my mind was focusing on the dog. So, well, my next body is going to be a dog's body. So depending on what I think, like Krishna says, Anta kale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. So whatever you think, that's what you're going to get. So that is very important. That's the important reason that we need to control our mind or train our mind to remember Krishna. So that's what it's saying here. It's saying that in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 6th chapter, 5th verse, it says, the mind is the original cause of bondage. So we might do so many things in our life, so many services, so many things. If we have not worked on controlling the mind, which is the original cause of bondage, or can be absolute cause of our liberation from the material world, then, then there is not of much use, right? We have to use our mind in, of course, serving Krishna, of course, chanting, all these things. We'll look at it as we go. Now, every little thing, what are the anarthas? We all know that anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, they are all different kinds of anarthas we see all the time within us and within other people. So this is also a thought that arises in my mind. Amazingly, like just think, we all might have a fear of something, right? I have a fear of something. And then I stop and think, what am I fearful for? Why am I fearful for? Oh, this dark, I'm fearful for it. Okay, I believe in Krishna. And the fear is only a thought. But I have to use my intelligence, think that whether I have to go with the thought. Now, the thought is what? Pride. Oh, I did so great. I am the best person in the world. Well, that's also a thought. I can always curtail the thought because I have read in Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is the doer. I am just nimitta matra. So when I get that, then I drop the thought. Well, I don't say the thought will never come again. It will come again depending on what my past conditioning was. If my past conditioning has always been being a very proud person or very greedy, it will come back again. But again, my intelligence will remind my mind, oh, you know what? No, Bhagavatam says you're not the doer. So, or it's like, for any of you all who have done computers, you know how a flow chart works. I say yes, it comes back. I say yes, it comes back. When I say no, it doesn't come back. When I say no again, it doesn't come back. So I keep going in that. The more times I say no, slowly that thought will disappear. So I will be able to conquer each of the anarthas I have within me just by understanding the thought better before I take the thought. Now, of course, in Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse, Krishna says, Savai manah Krishna padaravindayo, where he says the best way to control your mind is to engage it always in Krishna consciousness. Isn't that super easy? I mean, I'm just thinking that, yes, at least it is easy to start doing it. We may not achieve, at least I don't think I'm achieving control of mind immediately, but at least isn't it an easy way to do? Get up in the morning, chant your rounds, and then you cook for the deities and take care of them for deity worship. And if you have something to do from school or office, just get that done as a service, and then clean the temple. So, there is so many things. Even it doesn't matter whether you're going out or not, even with the COVID. Well, we should always keep ourselves in complete Krishna consciousness. Automatically, the mind will be in control. Now, since the followers of mind bring about material bondage, now very important, mind is giving us good thoughts and also giving us bad thoughts. It's giving us Krishna conscious thoughts. It's giving us absolute material thoughts as well. Now it depends on me where I differentiate between the two. Now, His Holiness Radhanath Swami always mentioned that there is a good dog and a bad dog in every person. So the good dog are my good thoughts. Bad dog are my bad thoughts. So if a good dog is if a bad dog is howling and screaming, yes, give me food, give me food, give me food, and I don't give the bad dog any food, automatically it's going to, and then it will stop screaming. But I only feed my good dog. So how do I understand that? Well, we go more into details, we will understand this better. Now, senses, mind, intelligence, and soul. Let's understand this according to Katha Upanishad. It says, Atmanam Ratinam Vidhi, Shariram Ratham Evacha, Buddhim tu Sarathim Vidhi, Mana Pragraham Evacha. Indriyani Hayan Ahur, Vishyams Teshu Gocharan, Atmendriya Mano Yuktam, Bhokte Iti Ahur Manishinaha. So this explains so beautifully. Like, just think the 5 horses are the 5 senses. The rope is the mind. The charioteer is the intelligence. And the person who's having the ride is the soul. So let me say this again. The 5 horses are your 5 senses. And the rope that you're holding, the rope is the mind. And the person who is holding the rope is the charioteer. It's the intelligence. And the person who is sitting there and having the ride is the soul. Now, very important, just imagine the intelligence is not very strong. It will not be able to hold very tight and it will let it loose. The horses, the senses are going to go everywhere. And the person sitting on the chariot is going to have a very bumpy ride. He's not going to have a small, happy ride. He's going to be jumping up and down. Now, can one of you remember this picture and tell me, what does this picture remind you of? There is another similar picture like this that anybody can unmute and answer. But I was just thinking, is there anybody? Oh, chat. Okay. Arjuna driven by Krishna. That's right. Arjuna wants to have the perfect ride. He requests Krishna to become his intelligence. He totally depends on Krishna. He tells, you take care of my life. So Krishna holds the mind and holds all the senses. So because Krishna is Rishikesha, he is the master of all the senses. When I surrender to Krishna and tell, I don't want to misuse my independence anymore, Krishna. I just want you to take care of it. So here, as you see, we will never have a bumpy ride. So here you see that Arjuna had a fantastic, with no concerns. He had the best life because of Krishna. Krishna was always there for Arjuna. Now, when Krishna is telling this to Arjuna, he actually is telling to everybody who is reading Bhagavad Gita. We could also make Krishna our intelligence, and automatically, so how do we make Krishna our intelligence? Listen to Krishna when what he's telling in Bhagavad Gita, and just follow the same way Arjuna is following. So that way we will be able to control. So yes, so here the person looks very ghostly because this intelligence is not strong. This mind is going everywhere and the senses are all over the place. So this is more of a person who is not Krishna conscious at all. So you can see that Krishna conscious people are at least having okay, right? Because, they have started controlling their mind and senses and trying to give Krishna the part of the charioteer. Now here it says, Indriyani prani ahur, indriyebhya paramana, manasastu parabuddhe, yo buddhe paratastu saha. So very important here, the mind, the mind is controlling the senses. So the senses are down here, the mind is on top of the senses. And this is mind, and the intelligence is controlling the mind, and the soul is controlling the intelligence. So in true sense, in our lives, if we want to really have a non-bumpy ride, we have to know that our senses are actually controlled by our mind, and the mind is controlled by the senses. The mind is controlled by the intelligence. Now, intelligence, how do I make my intelligence and mind very sharp and nice? Intelligence gets sharp because of constant reading of scriptures. Intelligence, the only way we can make our intelligence sharp is constantly exposing it to scriptures. And how do I make my mind? Mantra. So all kinds of stress. That's why it's called manas iti trayate iti mantra, where it trayate means takes the mind out of stress. So a mantra is something that will relieve the mind from stress. So that is what is happening in this situation. That mind is able to be controlled because it listens to Krishna. Now let's think of another. The 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 34th verse purport says, the easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humility. Now, Savai Mesha Manah Krishna Padara Vindayo, one must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then will there remain no other engagements to agitate the mind. Now just think of it. Now I'm trying to control the mind. I'm trying to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Let's take some reflections on this particular thing. Well, all of us are trying to chant Hare Krishna. Now, why is it that when I start chanting Hare Krishna, my mind is jumping everywhere? It's going here, it's going there. Maybe I'll just stop sharing and we can take a couple of reflections. So I was just thinking that I am sitting to chant, but my mind is all over the place and I'm not able to do. Well, my mind actually wants Krishna, right? Then why is it not able to focus on Krishna's name when I get started with it? Anybody?
Haribol Mataji. So the mind is jumping here and there because we have, I have so many desires, and I have so many things that I think to be fulfilled and more important. And then lack of faith also. We don't know whether this process will work or not. So we're planning for money making, and also this also due to misidentification. I'm thinking I'm this body and I have to build an empire here, and how can I enjoy more? So mind is constantly planning for more and more enjoyment into this flickering nature. We forget that we are actually not this gross person. No, we are a subtle person trapped into this gross stuff. So that we forget. So our sambandha with the Lord, we forget that our actually real relation, eternal relation, we are soul and we are part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna is our only shelter. That also we forget. We count on the flickering things of this world, the glitters of this world, and we falsely think that will make us happy. So in search of that, the mind is constantly planning future, and it won't let me be at the present.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rohji.
Hare, Hare
I,
Krishna
I,
Mataji.
yes,
This is Astra Madhav.
yes,
Yes,
Prabhu.
I think I will actually second what Sham Rupa Prabhu said, and I think we are actually committing the 10th offense basically. Even after reading all the scriptures, we are still materially attached. We are committing the 10th offense, and so that's why we are not attracted to Krishna's name.
Yeah, very nice, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yes, so we've been looking, and one point that I wanted to add is there's wonderful points. We're attached to the body. We don't have so much faith. We are thinking, as Prabhu said, the 10th offense. We're doing all these things. At the end of the day, what really comes to it, like Krishna says in to Draupadi, is you have to have one pointed attention surrendered to me, rather than thinking, oh, my husbands will help, or my grandsire, Kuru dynasty will help, or I will hold on my sari and I will be able to do it myself. But at the end, when she asked Krishna, why is it that you took me so long? And he said, you were trying your own things and I wanted you to try, and then maybe I could come, like that. I have to totally have only one focus. Yes, Krishna is the only one that can help me. And then surrender and chant. Then, of course, my mind will be able to focus on the mantra far more. And one thing that I heard in a lecture is, mind is always looking for different things. For time immemorial, it was looking for Krishna. So but we exposed it to so many things. Oh, this will give you enjoyment, that will give you enjoyment. But now, in the beginning, when we start chanting, it thinks that, oh, this is also something like that. It's like, you're going on a rat race. Even if you get the real food, you don't know whether that's real food. I have conditioned my life in such a way that it takes time for it to realize, oh my gosh, this is what I was looking for. But I was given 100 other things, and that's why I'm lost today. So I just wanted to share that point as well. So that's the reason, I might be able to chant, but this is one thing that really, really, really works. I mean, I have been trying to chant Maha Mantra for 22 years now, but I want to mention that I'm not a pro today, but I surely say that this process works for sure, because there has been a huge change in the way I think or I do things now. At least I'm not randomly deciding what I need to do. I think about what I do now more than before. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 29, chapter 68 verse, it says, as long as mind is not engaged in the meditation of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the mind will desire so many material enjoyments. Sensual images are recorded in the mind in a chronological order, and they become manifest one after another. Therefore, the living entity has to accept one body after another. Now, Mahaprabhu, when he talked about Chetu Darpana Marjana, which I will do a little bit later, but he says it's Darpana. Darpana means mirror, in Sanskrit and actually in Hindi as well, several languages in India. So Darpana means mirror. It's a mirror, it's a recorder. It just records everything that you expose it to. I don't know for time immemorial what all I exposed my mind to. That's why it has just caused so much dust on it. So I expose it to some, horror movie, then the whole night I will not be able to sleep because it will recall. It's like a recorder. You put something, it will come out. Like Radhesham Prabhu says, garbage in, garbage out. Gigo principle. If you put garbage into your mind, garbage will come out. So it depends on you whether what you are putting. So it's all on us. If I'm exposing it to going to Mangalarti every single day and I'm listening to Krishna Katha, I'm associating with devotees, I'm eating Krishna Prasada, then of course my mind is not going to be agitated. But if I don't do that, I expose it to every nonsense that's around happening around me, it's going to be very agitated and it's going to cause a lot of concerns. So that is very important. So I should not expose my mind. It's just a recorder. And very importantly, it cannot actually control me. But those people who have exposed their mind, their recorder to every nonsense, it is so loud that the soul even cannot, participate in its function. And those are the people who have a lot of mental, depression or difficulties that they face through so much, so much. Now we know that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there, just not just in Bhagavad Gita, but in general, when you look in the outside world, there are only two problems that happens in the world. One is a physical problem. People have problem in their physical, some part of the body is not working, the robotic body. And second is the mental disease. So the body, gross body, and the mind is only two things. So these are the two things that cause a problem. Several people today are trying to get enjoyment through drugs, through drinking, through so many things that they want to get enjoyment, but they're trying to look for enjoyment in the wrong place. Like Krishna tells in Bhagavad, in the 15th chapter, he says, Urdu Moolam Adashakam Ashwatam Prahuraviyam. This is a huge tree, and this huge tree has this, fruits. Just imagine you are looking at a tree and there's lots of fruits. Let's think it's a mango tree. And the mango tree is also reflected in the water. Well, I was just telling one of the days I was teaching in a Sunday school, I told, if I want to eat the fruits, what do? I jump in the water or climb up the tree. And one child told me, which was amazingly striking for me, was he said, we already fell in the water, Mataji, looking for the fruits. And I was like, wow, yeah, that's so true. I'm looking for happiness in the wrong place. I need to swim out of the water, get out of the material world, and actually look for the original tree, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita's 15th chapter. So we are looking at a wrong place for happiness in this material world. Now, another point that Bhagavad Gita tells us from 6th chapter 27th verse, he says, how to control the mind. Prashanta manasam hi enam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shantam rajasam brahmabhutam akalmasham. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. So Krishna is so amazingly explaining every bit in small steps to us. He's saying, just fix your mind on me. And not only this, he will also tell later, when Manmana Bhava Madhvato, over and over again, Krishna is trying to tell, just think about me. Use your mind for this. Then you will be okay. He's telling from within, from Bhagavad Gita through devotees all the time. So that is one of the very, very important things that we have to remember. Now, our mind is never vacant. Always thinking something. Can we imagine any time when our mind was not working? Even while sleeping, we are dreaming and probably getting into flying or whatever nonsense it is, but we think all the time 24 hours a day. That's the mind's nature, because it's not spiritual. Remember, it's a recorder. We can continuously play a record for eternity until unless there's battery or there is a plug-in on it will go on. So till our body is existing, the recorder will go on. Now Krishna is recommending manmana bhava madbhakto, always think of me. You just become my friend. And he's very simple. He actually gives only 4 things that you have to do. You have to think of him. He says, just become my devotee, worship me, and offer homage unto me. If you do these 4 things, then you will come to me. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. And he's telling this to us as well, if you are ready to surrender to Krishna, right? So when we do this 24 hours, we can be engaged in thinking about a service, or we can be engaged in chanting. We have a little extra rounds. I always see most of Guru Maharajas when they are walking, when they're talking, or they're not doing anything, they always have their bead bag in their hand. They're chanting all the time. I mean, I'm sure they would have finished all their rounds, but they always, any little time they will be chanting. They won't let even a drop of a moment in a day to go without really chanting Krishna's name. So it's very amazing. Now, let's get to the question of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks this question to Krishna. He says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manne vayur iva suduskram. He says, mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong. Oh, Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. He says that, okay, Krishna, you're telling me just control your mind. You're telling all this, I understand, but it's so difficult. Now, first thing I need to understand, what is when I have this thought in my head, I have to first understand it's not me, it's the mind. That's the first step. How do we do that? I understand I have to always think about Krishna, I have to chant, I have to focus, or 24/7, I have to, maybe listen to a lecture or do a service and all those things. But how do I differentiate between my mind and who I am? Any guesses? Think about it. Like I am having these thoughts. Now I'm trying to say, what is this? They're all talking about the mind and I'm not the mind, but I'm always having these thoughts. I have to differentiate between me and my mind. And how is that possible? The only way it's possible to just surrender to Krishna. We can do that. Just surrender to Krishna within your heart. Tell Krishna every day when I'm chanting, Krishna, I am not able to do this. I need your help. I need your help because I cannot even differentiate between what my mind is and what I am supposed to follow. Because all the good things and the bad things is coming from the same mind. So mind is a recorder. And as I said, it is the connection between me, who is a soul, who lives in this body, and the outside world. Like I had mentioned, if I was in the temple, I don't need the Zoom. If I was in the temple, I would directly talk to you. So I don't need the mind in the spiritual world. Of course, spiritual body has spiritual mind. That's different. It's not a separate entity. But here I have a separate mind. I need the separate mind because I need to connect to the outside world. So like how I'm using the Zoom to talk to all of you. So this mind, there is, to me, I don't know. I went through all the scriptures. Yes, it always says that follow, Krishna consciousness, it will be gone. The most important part is you surrender to Krishna. Krishna, you know what? I have no capacity to understand what's the difference between me and my mind. I need your help. So Krishna is so merciful. He will get you through different ways and he will get you to the point. We all know in Bhagavad Gita, even if I think of one particular question, I open the Bhagavad Gita on that day through Bhagavad Gita or through a devotee, we all have always had this experience. We will get an answer. Is that right? We always get an answer. So Krishna will always help in this regard as well. I just wanted to mention that several years ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I had this huge thing. I work with kids with disabilities, and I was just very disturbed that day. I was thinking that why are all these things happening? What is mind? And I was standing before Madan Mohan, and I was asking Madan Mohan that I want to know the difference between me and my mind. And you all won't believe that's my first introduction on a Wednesday class to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. All the questions that I was asking Madan Mohan, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu class answered all those questions. And I got the book and I started reading the book. Now, I will not claim that I'm a big mind controller today. I have lots of things that I have to clear. But the one thing I realized is I cannot do this myself. I need Krishna. For time immemorial, I have always thought I'm very independent and I can do. So here, that is what Arjuna is asking Krishna. Krishna, you are telling me you're restless. It's not very easy. It's like, difficult in controlling the wind. Like Arjuna was able to control the wind. Well, I cannot even control the wind. That's a different story. But he was able to control the wind, and he was not able to control the mind. So what about living entities like me? So then Krishna tells to Arjuna, he says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Asamshayam Mahabaho, Mano Durnigraham Chalam, Abhyasena tu Kaunteya, Vairagyena Chagripate. So he says, "O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind." Krishna is telling it is difficult to control the mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So what kind of practice is Krishna talking about here? He talks about the practice of Krishna consciousness, being regulated, getting up in the morning and chanting your rounds, and reading Shastra regularly, associating with devotees. And we also have to make sure that we keep this practice. And of course, very important is to surrender to a guru. None of this would work if you're not surrendered to the guru. Surrendering to the guru comes first. And then what are we detaching from? Detaching from the result. Well, it can also be that, we want to detach separately. Oh, you know what? I don't want this material world. No, you don't have to do all that. Just get attached to Krishna and detach to the result. Well, I'm trying to do something. Oh, I worked so hard for it and my service. Oh, I needed so much of things to happen. No, you did it for Krishna. Just leave the result to Krishna. As Krishna says, Karmanya Vadikaraste, right? He says that just do your job and just leave everything else to me. I will take care of it. It's very, very, very difficult. when I work so hard for something and then I don't expect the result. Well, I would not even work if I was not thinking about the result in usual sense. But Krishna says, don't be, because the result is what is going to cause you a concern. It's going to be stressful thinking about the result. He does not want us to stress about anything. He says, leave the result to me and I will take care of it. That's what he's talking about. So, and of course, 6:6, he says, how do we, bandhuratma atma manastasya, yenaitma, yenatmaiva atmanajitah, at anatmanastu shatrutve, vartetatmaiva shatruvat. He says, for him who has conquered the mind is the best friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Now, why is it that a mind will remain the greatest enemy? Sometimes mind, shows us horror movie. Well, the movie would not have even happened. Just imagine, I was just going to tell you a story about a boss. Just imagine a boss comes and tells me that, I think you can improve on these things. I think, there should be a little bit more work on this and things like that. That's it. That's the only sentence the boss would have talked to me. But my mind can start thinking, oh, you know what? With this economy, I might lose my job. Oh, after I lose my job, I might just go bankrupt. I will have no money. I may become homeless. And then after that, oh my gosh, I might just go crazy. So, my mind will create a horror movie just with one sentence that my boss told me. So our mind is always making up things that don't exist, it will think, and things that exist, it will totally take you to unreality sometimes. So you need to check that. So every time it creates some horror movie in itself, you want to be very careful in thinking that, oh, you know what? I am going to, well, my boss only told me one sentence. He didn't tell me that, oh, you're going to lose your job. Why am I even thinking about it? Well, if it really happens, then I will look for alternatives. Being positive and going ahead is going to help me a lot more than thinking, oh, there was a little something happened today. Well, I create this whole big thing about I'm losing everything and I'm going to be gone. Well, that's not required. That's just a horror movie that mind can show. But remember, we have a choice whether we want to watch that horror movie or not. I always have a choice. If a mind is telling me some bad things, fault finding, a mind who can get it in her head. Because I could have been a person that was exposed to a lot of fault finding before. So it can come back to me and say, oh, look at that devotee is not doing the right thing. That thought is also coming from the mind. I can always curb that fault finding mentality just by controlling my mind. Everything, every anartha is based on a thought from the mind. So every anartha can be controlled just by controlling the mind. So when I am trying to find out, get myself out of the anarthas, the most important thing is I control the mind. And we'll look at a few more things and then we can take, we can do some discussion. So there are, now, if I have to control my mind, there are two things that I really have to do. One is get my intelligence really sharp, clear. What is said in the scriptures, it has to just get in my head. Second is to chant every day in the morning during Brahma Muhurta, chanting all my rounds. That is very important if I want to be successful in controlling my mind. Now, according to Shruti or scripture, we know there are two books that we basically read, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, but repeatedly hearing them, trying to hear. So what these shastric references and the devotees that talk that their lives in Bhagavatam, actually what does it do? It cleanses the heart of all the contamination. And very importantly, the influence of the three modes of material nature. All the anarthas will be gone. Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, everything will be gone. Now, I want to touch upon the three modes of material nature. Mind is within us, right? We have a subtle body that's mind, intelligence, and false ego. Then where does this three modes of material nature come from? The three modes of material nature comes from the association I take. Like I get up in the morning and I go to work and somebody is always talking bad about somebody else. I have one of my colleagues who always talks bad about somebody else. So if I spend my 2 hour, 3 hour time with this person, well, I have exposed myself enough to the mode of passion. I watch a movie, it's mode of passion. Well, people have liquor or drugs, that's mode of ignorance. And of course, even mode of goodness is not as good as transcending the modes, but mode of goodness is far better. So whatever I get exposed in my surrounding, people, things, smell, sound, everything can change the mode I'm exposed to. So the mind will change its reaction accordingly. Now, when I listen to these scriptures over and over again and understand the real meaning of it, then what happens is I cleanse the heart of all the contamination by just listening to it. So when, even if a person, now if we all think back, I mean, I can think back earlier, if I had a person who would always talk about somebody bad, I was also getting influenced. Now the amount of influence I have on the person on me has reduced, because I think that this is just waste of time. I have to just get my work done and keep going. I'm not going to worry about what's happening everywhere, because I have a very limited time in this material world. I need to make my life perfect and go. So I don't give it heed on it, because my intelligence is trying to tell, oh, you read this in Bhagavad Gita, remember? Fault finding is a mentality that might start with non-devotees, will get to devotees. So be careful, don't do it. So all kinds of anarthas, anger, greed, pride. Oh, there are so many people who talk about, oh, how much of jewelry you have. So I get exposed one sentence of them talking about their opulence, their houses or their cars or money or whatever. And then I hear it. When I have my intelligence cleared and sharpened because of my reading scripture, I'll say, you know what? You are living in this temporary world. What difference does it make if you have a Lamborghini or have a $10 million house? Doesn't matter. You just need a small house so that you can take care of your deities and make it a temple and live your life for the short time and go back. So in this way, one becomes fixed on a transcendental platform. Remaining fixed on the transcendental platform is actually liberation from material entanglement, even when we are living in this material world. So slowly, that detachment from all these material needs, necessities starts coming. And that happens, and you sharpen your intelligence just by reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam again and again, and listening to lectures and associating with devotees. Now, how do I overcome the modes of material nature? This is a very important thing. And I just want to read this. This is from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 24th chapter, 43rd verse. Whenever there is bhakti, there must be three things, right? The devotee, the devotion, and the Lord. So these are very important. Now, without these three, like bhakta, bhakti, and Bhagavan, there is no meaning to the word bhakti. Now, Kardama Muni, he fixed his mind on the Supreme Brahman and realized him through bhakti or a devotional service. This indicates that he fixed his mind on the personal feature of God, Lord. This is super important. Now, just imagine there are several people. We know impersonalists, we know yogis. None of them can achieve the way a bhakti yogi can achieve, because he is meditating on the beautiful Shamasundara form of the Lord. Now, we all know we know that sugar has to be sweet. That's its nature. A fire is going to be hot. That's its nature. A living entity's nature is two things. That's the basic. We have to be loved and we want to love. And we have to serve and we want to be served. So this is something that's innate. We always want to serve somebody. If I'm not serving my family, I will be serving my nation. I will be serving my next door neighbor. I will be serving somebody, or I will at least serve my dog. So service is part of it's innate nature that's within every living entity. It doesn't matter who you are, which body you are, and to be loved. We all love to be loved by somebody. We love to love and serve is part of, it's like inbuilt nature of every living entity. But when an impersonalist cannot think of loving as the end and he's thinking something void, it is so difficult for that person to control the mind. I know personally there are people who follow, I don't want to mention the names of the organization, who have been following this impersonal path for several years. And unfortunately, that person is going through a lot of mental trouble now, a lot of depression and things like that. Well, I was thinking that if a person could have done so much for so many years, then why is it that he has to suffer today? But the same thing, if a bhakti yogi would have practiced something for 15 to 20 years, he would understand that there is no need to be depressed, because Krishna is always there with you and he's always protecting you and he will always be with you. Doesn't matter anybody else in the family or in the world will be with you or not at any point of time, but Krishna will always be with you. So this is a very important part. And here Kardama Muni is actually, he is totally, dedicated. He is realizing the personal form of the Lord. That is very important. Now, of course, he is beyond all the three modes of material nature. Now, he is the supreme living entity. Now, we are all subordinate. We are subordinate to Krishna, right? Now, even we can also be, taken away from the Maya, like limitations of Maya. Why? Just because we will, once we get connected to Krishna, we're as good as Krishna in quality. We know that, right? Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. We will be able to continuously, keep ourselves aloof from the modes of materiality, even though being in this body, and control our mind completely and keep focused on Krishna. So a person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness is at once, he will not take a long time. Once he is surrendered to Krishna, like Khatwang Maharaj, he had only 1 second and he surrendered. I think he had 1 minute or 1 second, I can't remember. But even in that short time, he just dedicated himself and he surrendered, and he was able to, think about Krishna. He knew exactly what's going to happen. Now, I was thinking I was going to compare two stories. One is Saubhari Muni. He's actually sitting under the water and he is meditating and meditating and meditating, but he only sees two fishes mate. And then his lusty desires arise and he married the 50 daughters of Mandata. So you can imagine, he is a Muni. He has all this mystic power where he can sit under the water and he do so many things. But Haridas Thakur was a greatest bhakti yogi, Namacharya, where he's just sitting and chanting and he makes a prostitute a devotee. Now, what else can we differentiate between the yoga systems? There are so many. We can be an impersonalist, we can be a jnana yogi, we do dhyana yoga, so many things. But a bhakti yogi consistently in life, in our stories, have always been successful. Like, think about Jada Bharata's story. Jada Bharata was in his past life, let's start with Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, he had left everything and gone. But to me, I always feel all these stories for us to remember. Even he was doing Krishna consciousness, he was trying to remember Krishna. But what happened is he got attached to a deer. But as we said in the beginning, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, the subtle body is always carried forward. So in the deer body as well, he felt, as soon as he got the deer body, he felt so bad because he realized, what did I do? What did I do to my life? I have become a deer now, and I left my entire empire to dedicate myself, and then he realizes, of course, then he goes to the same ashrama, Pula ashrama, and he actually associates with the sages there. He eats only dry grass, and next life he becomes Jada Bharata. Jada Bharata was totally aloof with everything that happens in the material world. So, there are several instances like Ambarish Maharaj. He was just a householder, and he was able to actually do a lot of things in Krishna consciousness. He had wives, he had kingdom to take care. He had so many things, but he still could perfect just because he was doing bhakti yoga. So for us in Kali Yuga, the only way that we can actually achieve anything is just through bhakti yoga. We cannot go and do any other yoga, and it's not going to really be possible either. So let me stop here before we go ahead. And I was just thinking of taking some reflections, any questions, and then I have a couple more. Anybody has any reflections or questions?
So Mataji, Haribol, thank you for the wonderful class. I have a question. Is that it seems like very difficult to actually focus the mind, although I hear so much, but it just seems like a insurmountable task to actually fix the mind. So would you please share some of the tips that can really help, or that has helped you?
This book has helped me a lot, Prabhu. It has tips of lots of things, Chaitanya Sharan Prabhu says. I had, at some point I did have a fear of driving, all of a sudden. And because of my health, I was driving and I was not able to drive, and I was so lost. And for almost about a few months, I was not having, I used to drive for several years before that. But that was actually the breaking point, I think, that I was very desperate because I want to do my services and I want to go and do stuff. And then I was really, really very hard praying to Krishna that I want to get this fear out. I never had any fear like this, and I don't want to have the fear. That is the first time when Satyadev Prabhu told me that you have to wake up. And I didn't understand what Prabhu was telling me. And he said, this is your mind. It's not you. And I said, I can understand, Prabhu. I cannot understand whether it's my mind or you're telling it's me. I'm very confused because I only have the different thoughts. The same thing. I don't know who I am and who is the mind. And then he told me a few things to do. It helped me a lot. And then, of course, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's book. And then I used to have this book next to me and I started driving. I told Krishna that I need to be able to do my service. And I realized that I was able to get rid of the fear just because there is one thing that Prabhu says in his book, which is very, very nice. He says about a train of thought. He says that, I'm just going to read this. Suppose an inattentive person on a huge, noisy, crowded railway station boards a wrong train. Some trains may stop for a few minutes, but some only after a few hours. In the latter case, the traveler will find getting back on track time consuming and troublesome. Our mind is like a congested railway station, filled with a cacophony of various stimuli coming from our senses and our memories. If we don't carefully check the stimulus that we dwell on, it may trigger within us a train of thoughts that is wrong, that takes us in undesirable direction. To keep small things small, we need to check the train of thought, or the thought train, before we check into it. When we check into a hotel, we presume that we will be staying there for some time. Similarly, when we check into a thought train, we presume it to be a desirable place where we can reside for some time, but it may not be. That's why we need an alert intelligence to discern whether a particular thought train is desirable or not. Pertinently, the Bhagavad Gita 6:26 urges us to attentively observe where the mind is going, and whenever it wanders, diligently bring it back on track. One thing that I'm sure you all are already doing is when you're sitting down chanting in the morning, I'm saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. When my mind goes to my emails or next to-do list and things like that, I do get my mind back. So in one sense, we are already controlling. But we have to put that practice for all the anarthas. When my mind says, oh, you know what? I should have been given the importance. My mind tells this all the time to me. Oh, you know what? You should get the credit. And then I start thinking, I remember all the instructions of Guru Maharaj and say, for time immemorial, I'm going to be sitting here getting recognition. People will pass and they go back to Goloka. When will I ever grow? My intelligence will tell that because I've heard that from Maharaj. So my intelligence has to be so sharp that I have to, Prabhu, I have no one to tell you, you do all the things. But that helps a lot that, oh, you know what? And when somebody is trying to fault find, I remember this thing when Maharaj was saying that, when somebody is in Krishna consciousness, they're already in a shower. When somebody is in a shower, you cannot tell they are dirty. Right? I mean, they will be dirty at some point, they will clear the dirt. So when somebody is already showering, you cannot tell, oh, that person is dirty. Similarly, when a person has already started the chanting of Hare Krishna and is surrendered to a guru and he's trying the process, you have no way to fault find that person. So that is very important. So I think, I do a lot of mistakes. There's no question. I understand more than ever how much anarthas I have now, because my mind keeps popping up and down, telling me, oh, you know what, this happened. You know what, this happened. And several times I go with the mind. And then after I go with the mind, the next day I think, oh my gosh, really? I did that? So it's as Arjuna says, it's so difficult. But it is one process. I mean, this as Krishna tells in the 6th chapter, this process really works. He says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihate. Don't depend on the result, and keep practicing. Yeah, I think I'm sure, Prabhu, you're far ahead of me. Thank you for asking the question so I can remind myself how I need to do.
I was just thinking in Lord Chaitanya's time, there was a small boy, his name was Gopal. And he had a hard time, I think he was chanting or Lord Chaitanya was chanting. Like, he had a hard time stopping from saying Hare Krishna. He's like constantly, he would say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And he could not stop. So that was a good problem to have, that he could not stop himself from chanting Hare Krishna.
Like the gopis, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm having difficulty the other way. Yeah, I'm difficult to stop my the mental
Mind
thoughts of different things, but they had difficulty stopping Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting. Just amazing, and that's the kind of golden state. That's the goal. Like Raghunath Das Goswami, he ran for 15 days for Lord Chaitanya. He was constantly thinking. When he heard first time from Haridas Thakur when he was a child, then that love kindled in his heart, and he was then onwards looking for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all the time. Yeah,
Wow.
thank you, Mataji, for sharing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's so nice, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else would like to comment or ask any question?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
I
There
will.
were so many points I liked. If I were to say which ones I liked, I would probably repeat everything you said. So, one of them especially was the comparison of the chariots, how you give the intelligence to Krishna. So that just really struck me, and it was really nice to know that. And another one, I was just looking for this for a long time, and like you said, the answers come through devotees' mercy and like the mercy of scriptures. So it's hard for me as well to like give up the results of my like work and duties and be aloof of them. And when you said that Krishna only wants us to offer them because he doesn't want us to worry about something we can't control, because that is a source of worry, that really struck me, and I think it's going to help me too. So thank you so much, Mataji, so much.
Thank you. I just want to tell one story actually. Radheshyam Prabhu was mentioning in his class, he said that, there was one boy who graduated his engineering and he got a job in the US. So he was actually getting paid $5,000. So he thinks that, oh, wow, I'm going to get so much money and I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm going to, hang out with friends and spend all the money and things like that, he will think. But as soon as he lands in the US, he gets an email from his dad saying that you can spend $1,000, but send $4,000 home. Well, he couldn't reject what his dad said. So the only thing he could really do is spend some on eating and, work to home. That's the only thing he can do with $1,000. So after about 5 years, his dad calls him and he says that, he found a nice girl. And so he arranged his marriage. And at the marriage, he gives him that 5 years, 12 months, 4,000. That much amount of money, the dad gives it to the son. And then here Prabhu says that Krishna is like the dad, you know. If that person had got all the $5,000 at that time, he could have been hayway, he could have gone in wrong way and it would have hurt him. But when you offer whatever you have as a result to Krishna, he will give it back to you. All your things like Prabhupada, he came with only $40, $40, such a little amount. And he created an empire with so many millions of dollars. So Krishna gave everything back to Prabhupada. So it is not that when I do my job, I should not expect result. I should not take the result. I have to cook, thinking that I need to cook very well. There is no question. Not that instead of sugar, I will put salt. I'm not worried about what the outcome is. No, I have to worry about the outcome. I need to make sure I do the outcome also very well. But most important thing is, I will not think about the outcome. Means I will not take the result of the outcome as I am the reason behind the outcome. So if I get, but again, the other way, if you're like, for a student, you're working very hard, you're getting good grades. Now, and your good grades, you tell Krishna, this is my offering to you. Now, in case you don't get a good grade, well, you're going to offer it to Krishna and tell Krishna, I'm going to try my best next time. I will try to find out what mistake I made and I'll try to improve myself. Because you don't take it. If you take it, it's like in the story, the person would have been affected. And now that the dad got him married to a girl, the girl is like a police officer. She will make sure her husband doesn't go here and there. Right. So making sure the situation is right and, everything Krishna will give you back. But when we start doing, we don't take anything. It's because of me. I need to get the result because it will affect us. That's the only reason. Krishna is not a person sitting there, oh, you do everything and give it to me. No, he does not want us to take it because it will cause a problem to us. That's why. Thank you, Niharika. That was a very nice question.
Thank you so much, Mataji. That was so helpful.
Thank you, Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna Mataji, thank you, Mataji, for the session. There were a lot of nice points. I particularly like the point where you said that mind is active 24 hours. It's like a recorder. It is never vacant, even while sleeping. So we have to be consistent, always thinking about Krishna. So it makes sense. I should not think, oh, why always? Because if I don't do it always, then the mind is going to give me the other sensual thoughts if I don't do it. So thank you, Mataji. That makes sense.
That's so true, Prabhu. Yeah. Even a 2-minute break, I always look at it. I don't do anything 100%, But I try to do 100 things because I want to keep my mind occupied. I don't do anything perfect, I know that. But I think that if I am overburdened with services, then my mind will not go anywhere, because somebody or the other will remind me of Krishna with just the service, as a WhatsApp message or a phone call. So I just feel that really helps me. Well, sometimes it's overwhelming, but that way, at least, even if I have a 10-minute free time, my mind will tell me to watch what's happening in the news. Oh, you know what? Well, I can know the news once a day. I don't need to know every 2 minutes whether somebody got impeached or not. Seriously, right? So my mind will take me, oh, you know what? This is about your country. You need to know about what's happening. So mind it will not give you a break. It will tell you, oh, you know what? I mean, personally, I used to be a singer. I would sing in college for orchestra, and I used to sing Bollywood songs. So I know. Thank God I stopped at that time. I only know the songs that was 20 years before. Now, even now, when that song is played, I can go back, rote memory, memorize the whole thing and tell it. But you ask me any other shloka from Bhagavad Gita, I would have forgotten. So that much, the mind is so strongly, you have to work hard. Itna giso piso, you do all those things on the darpana, nothing works. And I start thinking, seriously, what progress did I make all these years? I can still get attached to those things that I had several years ago, and it comes back immediately. Well, I've always said no, 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 no for 20 years, 22 years. And I'm thinking now that, well, really? That's what Krishna says. It will never let you go till the last minute. So you have to keep working on it. There is no time that Maya cannot act. It doesn't matter how many years you're chanting or how many years you're trying to do. There is no time. It can attack you at any point of time, over and over again. So you have to be very vigilant. And there are times, seriously, there are times when my mind would have said that, and immediately I would have already hummed and finished the song. And then I would stop and think, wow, mind, you're great. I am trying to keep away from it. And you made me sing the whole song thinking about it. And I would have also thought about which stage I sang and what I did, what people said. Everything comes back in memory. I don't know how much of memory I'll have for anything else in Krishna consciousness, but yeah, mind is so super tricky. Have to be very careful. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Mataji, this is also Madhav. Thank you. I think you while explaining to Kautakarana's point, you mentioned a very nice thing there. And I was reminded of the slokas in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says a very, in few verses, he kind of summarizes, the this whole thing we are discussing here about mind going here and there. And Krishna says there that however discriminating a person is, mind will take him away. It will take him away. But because the taste remains, the taste of this material world remains, so it will take him away until he gets the higher taste. So until that point, that struggle will be there, and we have to struggle to show Krishna that we are really interested. So because we had been ignoring him for millions of lifetimes, right? So Krishna expecting us to do this much of struggle in one lifetime is not too much, I think. Basically, right? so we have to work for it. I think Krishna wants us to earn it, basically.
Yeah, very true, Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's good for us. That's why he wants us to earn it. Like Prabhu says, you be in Krishna consciousness for 40 years, you will, one day we asked Prabhu that, Prabhu, how long when will we really get that? He says, 40 years, people who are able to stay in Krishna consciousness will inherit, or till they will inherit the kingdom of God. And I was like, yeah, I actually recently asked him, even if the anarthas there, Prabhu, he says, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's so difficult to give rid of the anarthas.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, all our anarthas are also just a perverted reflection of what is going on in the spiritual world. That's what Mahaprabhu said. Cheto darpana marjanam. Our material world is not different from spiritual world. It's just a perverted reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world. So once it is clear, then we can see spiritual world here itself, basically.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else would like to comment or? Okay, so I have only, I think, one more slide. So basically the best way to control the mind is to convert the mind. Now, how do I convert the mind? The mind is always looking for Krishna actually, but for time immemorial, we have fed the mind different things and temporarily made the mind happy. So it's worried that now when I get exposed to Krishna, I don't know whether this is permanent or not. But then slowly convincing the mind. My Guru Maharaj was saying one day that my mind is like a monkey. It's always jumping from one thing to another, one thing to another, one thing to another. But if you give the monkey-like mind a banana, it will sit at one place and not go anywhere. So the mind's real food, a real thing, is Krishna. So exposing the mind to a pure stimulus, pure actions, is really going to happen. But one very important thing, because Krishna loves us, it's not us achieving anything. Krishna loves us enormously. Just imagine if you are, we are all fallen into this kupastha manduka in the material world, and we are trying to raise our arms high up and trying to pray to Krishna. Now, Krishna is so merciful. It is said that if I walk one step towards Krishna, Krishna walks 1,000 steps towards me. So as soon as we raise a hand, he's ready to give hand and pick us up. For that, we have to fix our mind on something pure. And that something pure is Krishna's beautiful Shyamasundara form. And the only thing that will get you out of this material world in a very easy and a faster way is Bhakti Yoga. And that is like the most important thing. We can try so many different kinds of yogas. We can try different kinds of, asanas and, pranayama, all those things. Not that they don't help you. But the most important thing is Savai Manah Krishna Padara Vindayo. We have to surrender to Krishna and make sure that the mind is actually focused on Krishna all the time. And that way, a mind will find its banana. Like the monkey finds a banana, a mind will find Krishna. That way it will not jump. Maharaj was mentioning this in a context where he went to, actually I'll end up with this story. He was saying that he actually took his parents to Elephanta Caves. It's a very nice, it's a small little island in Bombay. And where they were going there, they actually, his mom had his credit cards and all the things in one bag, and a monkey came, jumped and took it away. So Maharaj didn't know what to do. So somehow he gets a banana and he gives it to the monkey. And the monkey starts eating the banana and throws all the credit cards and everything out. So similarly, how Maharaj connects all the stories that happened to him in his life into real world thing. And he was saying that is what we need to do. The monkey mind is looking for every nonsense that's available. Give him Krishna, and constantly giving him Krishna slowly. Even though, I'm sure all of us feel that from the day one, what we were to what we are today, there has surely been a big improvement in each one of us. We cannot deny it, not being humble, but it's not us, it's the mantra. It's a Maha Mantra and the process of Krishna consciousness that has surely made a difference in each one of the devotee that has taken to the process seriously. So that's a very important part, right? I mean, otherwise it would never happen. I have to control my mind. All of us have achieved some amount of success in controlling our mind, at least for sure. I mean, I know one of my juniors used to eat meat. As soon as he took up Krishna consciousness, slowly, he said the taste of meat was gone. So, as we go, the taste of different things of this material world starts going away. And that's a fact, right? So, yeah. So with that, I want to conclude, and I would, if anybody has any comments or questions or, anything that they want to add. I think we have 15 minutes. Is that right, Giridhar?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So I was just thinking that if anybody has any other comment or questions, or I can quickly. Okay. So I was also going to read a couple more about the mind, and I just love I love to read about this because it actually helps my intelligence. Tomorrow, when my mind gives me another proposal of something, my mind, I can actually use my intelligence and think that, oh, you know what? Remember you read it. Mind is a tormentor, not a mentor. The mind often pretends to be our mentor. It constantly comments about what is happening, suggests what we should be doing, and promises happiness if we just accept its counsel. But whereas a mentor makes us better than what we are, the mind makes us worse. Why? Because it is usually filled with dreams and schemes for petty pleasures. Now, why is it that mind is giving us this? Because we filled mind with all these thoughts for a time immemorial. Now, as I said, mind is a material thing. It cannot make us do anything. But unfortunately, there are people who take it seriously and who think that, yes, my mind is all in all. And they are the people who go through all these difficulties in their life. So here he says, because it is usually filled with dreams and schemes for petty pleasures at best, because that's what we've been looking for. Time immemorial, we've been running behind the petty pleasures. Now, and then he says that its counsel lands us in trouble and regrets all the time. Now, worse still, the mind is a taskmaster. No matter how much we obey it, it torments us unrelentingly. The mind will tell me, okay, go ahead, do that wrong thing first. And then it comes back and tells me why you did that wrong, and it will torment me. Because it's not a living entity. Remember, the mind is actually a recorder. It has some thoughts. It's like, I was remembering, you train a monkey, you tell you have to jump this 4 times, and that's right. So I will say, oh, if you go watch this movie, you will get happiness. That's how I fed my mind for a time immemorial. Or you go have a party with 10 people, you're going to be happy. So this is what I have fed my mind. And my mind is always going to reflect back to me like that. Now I'm telling my mind, you know what? All this is temporary. The real happiness is in surrendering to Krishna. Real happiness is to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now my mind is sometimes hearing, sometimes not hearing. Because it's again remembering the old things also, right? It has recall capability. Oh, remember you told on Friday evening, absolutely every Friday you have to watch a nice movie? And then I say, no, now I think I'm reading Bhagavad Gita and I'm understanding that this is not going to be helpful. It's not going to give me happiness. It's going to give me more trouble. And then the mind will listen one time. But as years go by, when I practice this over and over again, automatically my love to watch those movies would go away. Because I have told my mind, now mind will not torment me anymore after that, because I have made sure that it is more a mentor than a tormentor to me. So I can make my mind a mentor than a tormentor. So I think that you have to make sure that you expose the mind to all the good things, and it will still have all the bad things that we have done in our past. All of us have different past conditionings. Some of us have conditions for, sometimes I feel that I should not have been a singer, because that is what torments me the most. Because everything that is disconnected to will come back to me and tell me, oh, you know what, you remember what happened in that movie, that song that you heard, it will come back to me. And then I have to make an attempt. You know what? I am going to learn a new song for Krishna. I want to know what other Vaishnava acharyas told about this song. So slowly, when I change, then the attraction to that song slowly withers away. Not that it is totally gone. So I have to train. It's like training. For most parents, it's easier because we all have children. When children, it's like parenting. For mind also is like a little kid. It will be jumping up and down. It will do things that you don't want it to do, but you want it to listen quiet and, it's like how we talk to our kids in a very nice way, model it nicely. Like I tell my mind, you know what? Sometimes my mind can get very anxious about things. Then I'll sit down and say, you know what? There's nothing there. It's called self-talk, according to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I tell my mind, you know what? There's nothing. No problem. Everything is going to be okay. And I couldn't believe it really works. Now, all the tips that Prabhu does say in the book, it absolutely works. It's amazing how it works. So, but that self-talk, because the mind is actually a mirror, it's a recorder. When I'm trying to tell the mind about the good things, it listens, it takes everything into account. You expose it to bad things, it will take that. If you expose it to good things, also it will take that. So, so it is, it's a very funny thing that, we have this thing within us. That's the reason it's more difficult. If I have a tormentor who's outside, I can run away from him. But this tormentor or mentor is within me. But one important thing is Krishna is with me all the time. Krishna, that is the biggest thing I have. When I first heard that soul is actually engaged with subtle body and then the gross body, I was thinking, oh my gosh, really? I'm suffering like that? But then the thought that Krishna is with me inside. He's not outside, he's with me inside. And he's helping me. He's always telling, like in Mundaka Upanishadi, there are 2 birds. We are busy eating fruits and Krishna is just looking at us. Are you done? Are you done? Can we fly home forever? He's constantly telling us. And I always feel that how amazing Krishna is. He's the best person. What in the world did I think when I actually went away from him? He's telling us all the time, yeah, you know what, you're done? We can go, we can fly now back to Godhead. And then I'm still busy eating. There are times, sometimes I lift my head, yes, Krishna, I want to go. Okay, hold on, I need to eat another apple. So that is the stage I am in now, where I sometimes look at Krishna and say, oh, Krishna, thank you so much for being with me. Okay, hold on, I have to just finish one more thing. I have one more apple or one more mango to eat. So that is not gone. Hopefully someday when I will drop everything and just look at Krishna, okay, I'm Krishna, I'm ready. So that is the time then, we have to use our mind and make our lives perfect. So I like to stop here, and we can take last few comments or questions, anything we have, or we can also do a, yeah, go ahead, Mataji. Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking something. Okay, so we can also do we can sing some Hare Krishna mantra. I know I'm not too sure if um, everybody can.
Mataji, actually, I wanted to make a comment. Um,
Yes, Prabhu?
yeah, so I really like the point in which you mentioned that, or someone mentioned that higher when you have higher tastes, then these lower tastes basically go away, and that is actually really true. That once you have these higher tastes, then these lower tastes. I mean, once you get into spirituality, once you pursue Krishna consciousness, then I mean, you will still have these lower tastes. Like we'll still have these lower tastes, but slowly these lower tastes start to go away slowly. And that's what I felt for my personal experience, that um, that when you have higher taste, then they go parallel with one another. And it's not that the lower tastes suddenly go away. They go side by side with one another, and then you just keep on doing higher tastes, and slowly you don't even realize it that they go away. It's natural. It's not something that you have to try that. So that's the power. And yeah, so I feel I really like that point. Also, you were mentioning that the mind is basically, if you're able to control it, it will be your best. So you were mentioning some point, and this point is really related to one of the verses in Bhagavad Gita. I forget which one, but if you are able to control the mind, then it will be your best friend, and if you're not, then it will be your worst enemy. So yeah, that's very true. That also another thing is, in Krishna consciousness, you're not. We tend to stop blaming the external factors for our miseries, and look inside more of, and that's what brings humbleness also. um, so yeah, that's just few things I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So we just looked at that verse, and we were just saying that the verse was actually from 6:6, Bandhuratman Atmanastasya, where he says that for who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So yes, Prabhu, thank you. And yes, absolutely, it doesn't go away all of a sudden. It takes time, but yes, the taste of it surely reduces from the beginning itself. The taste remains. All the lower nature taste remains, but as the time goes, it does fade away. And there is surely, I mean, according to Shastra, surely the taste will vanish at some point. But I am at the place where I have a taste for both now. I have to work to give up the lower taste. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Shamra Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yes, Mataji, thank you for the very wonderful class. It's really very helpful. Just one thing I wanted to recall, that today, today in India and tomorrow in US, is the Sankranti. So this is the day actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas to leave his very dear, loving mother and his wife, and he took sannyas for all of us, to deliver all the fallen people who could not surrender to him, uh, to deliver the offenders. So because he did that supreme sacrifice, and we all know the story, uh, he didn't have to do that, but um, he didn't need to do it, but he did it to attract even those people who could not surrender to him. So he is the Mahabhadanna avatar, and he has given us this wonderful mantra, which can really deliver us, as you beautifully explained. Mantra means which liberates our mind. So we can definitely take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Vaishik Prabhu often loves to say, and also mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that those who take Lord Gauranga's name, even difficult things become easy, like difficult things like controlling the mind also becomes easy. And without Gauranga's name, even the small, uh, easy things become difficult. So
That is
we have hope, and there is a great occasion of the Sankranti. We know Sankranti is a big festival in India also, but it also a day of big significance for all of us, because Mahaprabhu took that very big step, like supreme sacrifice. Actually, he did. Um, his only no, he was the only son, and he left to deliver for all of us actually. So we can feel so much indebted. Thank you, Mataji.
absolutely, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Such an important thing. I was not aware when he exactly took sannyas. But absolutely, Prabhu. And I was thinking every time that we distribute books, I remember the shloka. Maybe you know the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Mahaprabhu says, "My hands are so much filled with the fruits. I need help. I cannot distribute all this myself. I need help." So the fruits is nothing but the books, where he wants to give away the books. And we are all so fortunate under the care of His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. We're trying to do some amount of book distribution. And every time I give away books, I just imagine myself standing there, taking the fruits and trying to give away to people and giving it to more people, telling me, you also distribute, you also distribute. So, I just love that. I don't remember the Bengali of it, but I just remember that purport so much. And what a auspicious occasion that it's tomorrow, and hopefully we all can pray to Mahaprabhu that. And another important point, I was just thinking that Shankaran Prabhu always tells that in the morning before we chant, we always do this Shashtakam verse, and we pray to Mahaprabhu and then start chanting. And just as Vaisheshika Prabhu also does in the Japa, where he says about you have to do Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Without chanting Mahaprabhu's name, we're never going to achieve any success, in our life. Especially, controlling the mind is the biggest thing. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. That's super helpful. So I just want to mention at the end that I think we are very fortunate to be in connection with Srila Prabhupada's mission, and what a fortune that we can actually, after millions and millions of years getting conditioned in this world, we're trying to understand the real purpose of life. And I think and Prabhupada always says, don't wait for another lifetime. Just try to perfect it this time and go away, don't, because this world is scary. Even after doing so much of chanting, there are people who actually have a fall down. So we have to be very, very worried about the fall down, and make sure that we are always connected to, serving Guru and Guru Parampara and chanting. So, and just so at the end, I just want to summarize the whole thing. So the only way we can control our mind is controlled by chanting every day, especially Brahma Muhurta. Shankaran Prabhu had told one time that why should it be Brahma Muhurta? Why can't I chant in the evening? He was mentioning that usually the modes of material nature, it's more of goodness in the morning, more of passion in the afternoon, and more of ignorance in the evening. So when I want to go, for example, if I want to go to the airport, if I want to go fly in an airplane, I have to go to the airport, right? So if I want to transcend the modes of material nature, if I am at the place where it's mode of passion or ignorance, and I have to come down to the mode of goodness to transcendent. So similarly, I have to be able to I will be successful in transcending only when I chant during the mode of goodness, to transcend that and go off and go to the above, Vasudeva stage, where I can transcend the three modes of material nature. So that's very important. And reading the scriptures is very important, because I can sharpen my intelligence by scriptures. Even if my mind goes a little heavy, my intelligence will remind my mind, hey, you know what? You're just going the wrong way, and just come back here. And of course, association of devotees. He says this over and over again. You have to associate with devotees, and always remember Krishna. Always remember, whatever I'm doing, I just remember Krishna, do my service for Krishna, so that I can make my life perfect. Thank you all, and please excuse me for any comment, offenses that I did, and if I did something wrong, please correct me. And I'm just trying to do these classes so that I will be able to read scriptures more in detail, and it basically helps me in this process. If it's helped any of you, I'm very grateful.